Hello, welcome to Rob, Ryan, Red, the Wrexham podcast brought to you with Red 10 People Development. Well, Wrexham suffered a heavy FA Cup hangover as they were beaten by Hull City on Tuesday night. So maybe we need some hair of the gog for our Welsh derby with Swansea on Friday night. On this podcast, we'll look back at the loss, bring you the latest injury news, and preview that upcoming clash with Swansea on Friday night. All that and more on today's show.
Rob, Ryan, Red.
Well, Nath, it's what we maybe feared after the expenditure of the weekend. Wrexham fought until a bitter end against Chelsea in the FA Cup, and the game against Hull was always going to be a quick, tight turnaround. And it took its toll. One of the most disappointing performances probably of the season. I know Hull are a very good team as well. And, we were in it to the end, but that was always the risk, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I think we played for Hull 3 times. We won one on penalties thanks to Ollie Palmer rescuing it, the rescue act. But really, can we have too many complaints on any of the 3 defeats? I don't really think so. Away from home, and Kiefer misses the penalty. On Tuesday night, I feel like it was more than just tiredness. I feel like we were running out of bodies to turn to, running out of players, and ultimately Hull are a good team. You said it. Hull played well against Millwall. From that first half I watched them hit the bar twice. Millwall score against the run of play. Hull go on to lose 3-1. You look at it and go, oh, well, Hull have been battered by Millwall. That is not what the game showed. You watch the game. And they are a very good team. They are one of the stories of the season, if not the story. So they are a very good team. I told my friend Catherine, who was in the away end, that they were deserving winners on the night. I felt, I was a little bit disappointed with the free kick goal. Obviously, Arthur makes amends, saves the penalty. Broadhead scores quickly. A quick note on these Wrexham. One thing I don't want to see next season is these current goal frames. They've got to go. I can't keep seeing goals that they're bouncing straight back out like the Garnacho one, like the Broadhead one. It's aesthetically not very nice, Rich. I don't know why. I want to see it nestle into the bottom of the net and not be bouncing straight back out. So get those goal frames gone. But yeah, I had complaints about various aspects of it, but I didn't have any complaints with the result.
No, again, I think that we need to realise that as well. We're still in a fantastic position, still in our hands going in with 10 matches left of the season. Let's look at that wider picture and the positives that we've still got so much to play for. And you can hold your hands up sometimes and say, we lost to a better team. That is fine. And for me, kind of, it worked both ways because first half, we were beaten by then. The subs make a huge impact. We looked so much better in the final 15 or 20 minutes. And the fact that going into sort of extra time, you felt we might nick a draw, that looked inconceivable at halftime, the way that we've been playing. So there is that slight positive that, we responded just too late, really. But yeah, like I said, those sloppy errors as well. I think it's emotional and physical fatigue from the weekend as well. Maybe that's on the players' minds. But in terms of the lineup, Nath, there were rumours ahead about Kiefer Moore's injury. We'll get onto that later in the podcast and bring you the latest injury roundup. Kiefer misses the game. He's going to miss the next few games as well. So it maybe wasn't so much of a surprise when the lineup dropped. Broadhead and Windass behind Sam Smith. But it was quite surprising that the team didn't look too different from that Chelsea game, did it? And while some managers will say it's good to have that consistency, do you think that was a contributing factor, that we just didn't make enough changes, really? Or do you think that's because we don't have that quality in reserve that maybe we think we do?
I think watching the game on Tuesday, we concede a free kick. For me, that's not about athleticism or fitness. That is just a very well taken free kick that I think the goalkeeper will be disappointed by. Honestly, I think Alconco will look back at that and be disappointed. He makes a great save on the penalty, and set pieces are often, highly disputed. Is it a really good free kick? Is it a poor goalkeeper mistake? Is it a really good penalty? Is it a poor penalty? And people have different opinions. I didn't think Hull created loads. I thought McBurney did for Hull what I felt like Kiefer could have done for us. winning sort of soft fouls, being aggressive, bringing others into play. Just felt like, and I was watching it with my sister, and she was saying that, or we were both saying that, it is just that little bit predictable with Smith, especially when you just want to play those balls over the top. It worked with Chelsea because they dominated the ball, and you could allow Badiashile and Tosin to push right up and then get them in a foot race. I think Hull had cottoned onto that pretty early and didn't allow for that. It meant that the kind of kick and rush approach to get Smith into the game was very, very difficult. I don't know the exact numbers, but it was something like 14 touches by half time or something for Smith. Again, that's highly debatable. Like, do strikers even need many touches? Do you want your striker to have a lot of touches of the ball? Erling Haaland would show you don't need loads to score goals. It just felt like we couldn't gain any territory. That was what was knackering us out on the night, is that every time we got the ball back on the edge of our area, the MO was boot it long in the hope it maybe gets to Smith, and then it comes straight back, and it keeps coming back, and it's this aerial bombardment going up to McBurney, who was winning the ball, bringing the wide players into play. Long-time listeners of the show will know how much I really wanted Joe Gelhardt in a Wrexham shirt. I think he's shown this season exactly why I really wanted him at that time. And yeah, I just felt like McBurney gave Hull the focal point to work off, and everything kind of orbited around him. And while it sounds like a knock on Sam Smith, it isn't, because it's not his game style. I just felt we lacked that kind of focal point for us. It was a very much a team that was set up to counterattack, and yet wasn't able to gain the territory until we were able to get Kabore and Rathbone onto the pitch.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's a combination of one, Hull were probably the worst team we could have played in a way on the Tuesday night, just because they are a better version of this Wrexham side, play similar football, but they just do it a bit more refined, a bit cleaner, a bit more experienced as well at this level. Like I said, exceptional manager. They've had a transfer embargo all season. They can't pay fees for players. Everyone who comes in on loan, they've used the loan market really well, by the way, but they can't pay loan fees either. So it's done on a lot of goodwill and the promise that they will give these players minutes. That's their bargaining chip. So Hull, fantastic, fair play to them. They did a job on us. But it was also the fact that, like you said, that Kiefer had this injury, which meant you had to go with Smith up top. And like you said, subs make the game a bit better in the second half. You bring Rathbone on for Viner, at half time. That gives you a bit more sort of an engine in midfield and that outball, because Viner, he looks like he's okay at breaking up play and doing sort of the jaggedy work of just kicking the ball and getting rid of it. But when you're actually in possession, he's just not as progressive. That's because he's a centre-back. We're not asking him or expecting him to be. That is just the nature of what he is as a player. Kabore on the right wing, we've just not seen enough of him really this season at full pelt. But that was an incredible cameo performance. And we looked better as well, Nath, when Cadamarteri and Rodriguez were in the attacking line, just because they were a bit more suited to that long ball, crosses into the box style. But again, you can't really expect much of them, because Cadamarteri hadn't played for Wrexham before that, and J Rod, what was his last touch? A penalty against Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup. Like, these are two players who just weren't quite match sharp either to come on. So, and DKD looked bright enough, quite simple on the ball. He kept things tidy, but we looked better with the subs. But I can also see why none of them started in a weird way.
You know what it is about subs, particularly subs late in games? You want to feel inspired. Like, you want to believe that player is going to score or make an assist or make a goal-saving tackle. And I agree with you. I think Kabore was the best player for Wrexham on Tuesday night. He played, all of half an hour, 20 minutes. I wasn't massively against Longman starting. I saw there was quite a bit of revisionism after the game. I thought Longman was very, very good against Chelsea.
I thought Longman was decent against Hull, to be fair.
Yeah, well, the timeline of social media would argue vociferously against that. But I didn't think he was terrible, but a lot of people did, and that is fine. That is the game of opinion right there. Kabore comes on. I thought he was very, very lively, very strong. You have to remember that he has been nursing an injury, which is why he played no part against Chelsea. So he was arguably the freshest starter, caliber player that we had available. Rathbone comes on. I thought he did well, better than Viner. He can get his foot on the ball. Like, he's nursing a groin issue right now, and we are already. We'll get on, to the actual injury dilemma, but you need to keep Rathbone fit. He's got to be very careful. Groin problems aren't something to sniff at. DKD, I thought was quite bright, maybe not as effective in terms of stamping his complete authority on the game, but he was busy enough and buzzed around. Don't think Windass had particularly one of his better games. You would expect him to be one of those players who you can give the ball in tight pockets of space and him to gain new territory. I think Broadhead is good at that. Maybe keeps hold of the ball a little bit too long on occasion. Broadhead. Cadamarteri I really liked. Thought he was lively. He showed me that maybe he can be trusted with a few more minutes than he got. But my point being is, you need a goal. You're bringing on Bailey Cadamarteri, you're bringing on Jay Rodriguez. I would love to know, straw poll, how many people really thought we were going to score the equaliser. How many people really believe, like we did when we had Stephen Fletcher, or like we did when we had Ollie Palmer, or roll back the years, or other players that would come on and make that impact off the bench. Now, with so many injuries, I don't feel we have that. Don't feel we have that in attack. I think now we're back to if plan A doesn't work, plan B looks like it's got a fair few holes in it. And that is just the reality that Wrexham are in. They need to get creative now. Is it a DKD number 9 job and have a kind of fluid front three where Broadhead, Windass and DKD are all occupying different positions, confusing markers. No one really knows who they're quite marking. It's all about passing men on. If one of those goes wrong, you've got a free run, you've got a gap, exploited goal. Making it sound a lot more sort of simplistic than it actually is. But confusion is popular, particularly at Premier League level. Look, we see it at numerous Premier League teams. They don't go with an orthodox number 9, which is what Kiefer Moore is, which is what Sam Smith is. So that obviously is an option. You could ask a lot more of Bailey Cadamarteri. Again, a lot of responsibility on his shoulders were he to get, say, half an hour, a half, a start. So I think now we are going to need to see some real creativity and ingenuity in the lineup combinations, because that Windass and Moore partnership we're not going to see for a bit now. Some of these partnerships, Kabore has been out. You'd think he would come back in now. Is George Thomason going to have to come inside? Kakache, no, he's not around. Matty James still not around. Viner seemingly not able to be that front-footed midfield player. I like him maybe in big away games, maybe Birmingham, maybe Coventry, if we need him at that point. We don't have other players fit. I think he'd be good at breaking up play, being a defensive midfielder. He's not going to put a foot on a ball. He's not going to be able to progress the play. And look, if you offered us this position now, at the very start of the season with 10 games to go, we all would have said, yes, please, where do we sign? So I don't knock that at all. We would have done. We'd have said 10 games to go. With that, even with the fixtures we've got, 10 games to go, you got a little bit of a buffer in the final playoff spot. Would you take that right now? Absolutely yes. So now it's just about quickly say this. We can miss out on the playoffs, and that's okay. That is just football. That is how it goes. But let's not throw it away. Let's make somebody take it off us. Let's get someone to wrestle it from us. And that involves good performances and trying to get the absolute maximum out of what we got. So I just want to see a bit of creativity in the lineup now. I don't think we can just keep running Smith into the ground, doing the same thing in games where the game's style isn't going to suit that.
You make a good point there, Nathan. Looking at the wider picture, and you have to take a step back, because you don't want to be too pessimistic and say, "Wow, at the cup, we lost in the league." What's happening here? This is going to be Wrexham's best ever season. 162 years of this football club. Right now, what we just watched, this is the best Wrexham team statistically, league finish probably, of all time. So you've got to appreciate that, got to enjoy it. And like you said, Nate, you just hope these final 10 games of the season, we are right in the mix, and whatever happens, if a team is better than us over those 10 games and we've played well, you hold your hands up and say, fair enough, that's happened. But you don't want And we've said, look, the summer is the time for the actual kind of, not inquest per se, but you look back then and look at the winter window. We said, a maybe more proven striker would have been nice just to have off the bench where you've got that proven goal. Another wing back, so Thomason's not being played out of position for the final games. And we've got to find solutions to that now internally, because we had our chance. We didn't take it. The club decided that, their business was the right way to go about it. There wasn't value for money with the wing back. Cadamartri was bang for your buck in terms of an extra attacker as well. And there's a huge element of misfortune with injuries. But all teams have injuries. Look what happened with Stoke. I'm sure Stoke would be looking at the table and saying, well, if we hadn't lost half our team to injury, we'd still be in the playoff picture, if not the automatic. So you've got to just get on with it and deal with it, haven't you? And as we always say, and we've said for so long, loads of listeners have pointed out, they've emailed in, we so often find those solutions. A player gets injured, someone else steps in, they take their chance. Or just these sliding doors moments where it looks like an absolute disaster, we find a solution. And that's the challenge again now. We're in such a good position. It's still in our hands. We've got some really exciting games to come. I think, was it 6 of the last 10 are away from home, maybe? Or that worries me a little bit. But we've just got to do it because it's in our hands now and it's such an exciting opportunity. How are you feeling right now, Nath? Because we don't maybe talk about the playoffs too directly. We kind of go around the houses, don't we? Do you, right now, as of today, still think Wrexham will get the playoffs this season?
I think they'll just about get there. I think that by a point or two. I think they'll just about have enough. But it's hard not to shake the feeling. Look, I think two things can be true. It can be Wrexham's best ever season, and you can be disappointed if they miss out on the playoffs from here. Like, both of those things are fine. Sometimes think you can get sort of bogged down by this rhetoric of like, you have to be grateful for whatever plays out from here on in, because it'll be the best ever season. Like I always say to you, increased investment, rising through the leagues increases the scrutiny and therefore increases the expectation and the pressure that comes with that. Pressure is a privilege. If you want to play at the very highest level, I was watching before a YouTube video that was keep or sell for Wrexham, were they to go up or even stay in the Championship. And in that video, they were talking about, even in the Championship, a lot of these players that we've currently got in the squad, this trio of people would sell a lot of those and upgrade and move on. So, look, it's really cutthroat. I think you're allowed to feel, ecstatic, disappointed, whatever. I will be disappointed they missed out. But I think they'll just about get there. I think they'll just make the playoffs, I think, by a point or two. What about you, though? Are you nervous, optimistic, pessimistic?
I'm certainly more nervous because I really did think that one of Millwall or Hull would drop out and it would be us and Southampton in the playoffs. I can't envisage that right now. I think it's us or Southampton for 6th or maybe 5th at an absolute push towards the end. But, those fixtures kind of scare me. The thought of having Southampton at home in basically a cup final, winner takes the playoff spot, it could be billed as. That excites me because just Wrexham's track record in those games, particularly at the Carras, and I'm choosing that at home, which it looks like it will be if Southampton's cup game they progress to the quarterfinals, so that should get moved. I know that their game for Ipswich has just been rescheduled, so Wrexham, Southampton, we should get clarity very soon on when that will be played as well. That excites me. When you look at the fixture list, you're terrified by Coventry, you're terrified by Borough. My hope is they're both up by then. I just hope they have the easiest swan song now to automatic promotion. Last 2 games, they're not at it as such. Do you know what I mean? And we can maybe get some points there if we have to, because that is daunting. I just think we're going to just miss out because of the injuries. I think at our optimum, we are a playoff team. Fully fit, we are a playoff team. It's just, if we had a full season, or not even a full season, half a season of a fully fit Kabore and Kakache, and if we had if we could have half an hour of Sheaf or James in a game, I'd feel so much more confident. Just right now, I feel a little depleted with the squad. And again, like I said, that's fine. Like, that is okay because it's happened. We've got to deal with it. I would just say right now, because of the injuries, more of the performances, I think we might just miss out.
Rich, you know why because I also feel nervous. I also feel nervous that injuries are derailing us. And you know what is giving me optimism? Parky. Because every time I say like, oh, we have no way to get out of this, we're stuck. This team isn't gonna do anything, isn't gonna progress. I don't like this line, don't like this. And every time Parky's right. Every time I say like it's over or it's not happening. We're not winning today. Look at that lineup or this is it. Like injuries have caught up with us or this is it. Like this signing's not working out. Parky always delivers. So I'm not betting against him finding a solution. We are hopeful that Matty James is going to come back. We are hopeful that Kiefer, will be able to play a part again in the final run-in. Coventry, really daunting. I get that. We beat Coventry at home. Middlesbrough, we should have beat them away. And imagine Middlesbrough have to come to the racecourse needing something for automatic promotion. That is far from, the ideal scenario for Borough. Imagine the pressure having to go Wrexham away. Both teams needing a result. We've seen what the racecourse can be like, the Kairos can be like when it gets rocking. You're saying about that Southampton game. There are tricky games in there, don't get me wrong. I still think Oxford away is a tough game midweek. They are still fighting for their lives. Leicester City winning the other night does not help Oxford at all. West Brom away, again, poor but struggling and fighting for their lives. Difficult game. And ultimately, I still think Wrexham are not a team you want to be playing. I do not think. I think a depleted Wrexham might be more appealing than a fully fit Wrexham. I don't think you want to be sort of taking Wrexham lightly because Rosenia did that a little bit and almost paid the price. And we're not going to come up against, with respect to any of the teams there, we're not coming up against any Josh Achiampongs or Pedro Netos or Alejandro Garnachos, and Lewis O'Brien and others have shown they could hang about in games like that. So, yes, we're having a bit of a wobble now. People are dropping like flies, but, now is the time to keep the faith. 10 games to go. It's still in our hands. And what did we say, Rich? I'll leave it on this before we go to the next segment. But we said, didn't we, long ago that the 5 teams above us would still be the 5 teams above us when all's said and done. I felt strongly at the time. I think that's aged pretty well. All of those teams are incredibly consistent. So in my mind, we are where I thought we would be, fighting for that last spot. Bristol City have fallen away. Derby are hanging in there a bit. Birmingham have fallen away. And then you get teams like Swansea coming up on the rear who they beat us on Friday, be 3 points behind us or 2 points behind us, something like that. Within a win, I think, but behind us. So how can you handle the pressure? We did that in League One last season against Wycombe, and now we've really got to show all our bottle.
Nathan Salt and Rich Fay.
Right, Nath, we've mentioned injuries a lot on this podcast. Let's bring you up to date with the very latest from Phil Parkinson. And he has ruled Kiefer Moore out of the next 3 matches before the international break and says that Kiefer Moore is also a very big doubt for Wales's playoff campaign to reach the World Cup. Of course, Wales play Bosnia in Cardiff in their semi-final and face a potential World Cup playoff final against Italy as well. The exact quote from Parky was, "I think we'll know more in a week or two on whether he'll be able to play for Wales, but I say he's a doubt for that, a big doubt. I'd like to not say officially what is going on because Kiefer needs to see how it settles down the next few days. Kiefer played Saturday and did well when he came on. After the game, there was a bit of tightness there and we thought he was okay. He trained on Monday. We sent him for a scan and there's a split in the tendon. This is for a hamstring injury. It's not the muscle, but it's the tendon. And they're always contentious injuries because there's no definitive timescale on them. Of course, it's a blow, but we've had loads of these moments and things since I've been here, and we find a way. And that's what we're going to do on Friday." Parky also delivered an update on Libby Kakache, who has suffered a fresh setback in his own recovery from a hamstring problem. He's missed the last 7 games across all competitions, Libby Kakache. He will miss, it looks like, Swansea at the very least. Parky said, "It's not the news I wanted. They, Kakache and Moore, are not weak injuries, put it that way. Libby hasn't trained with us. He's just had a setback doing his rehab. which is a huge blow for him and us. Of course, Ben Sheaf is out for the rest of the season with his medial ligament injury. Matty James is still out with a broken toe, and George Dobson has 2 matches left of his 3-match suspension. Where's that positivity gone, Nath? We need it again.
No, look, like I say, what Parky said it himself right there. What's the point in feeling sorry for yourself now? I think we have to be honest with ourselves. Ben Sheaf, I think if I just go through these players, Ben Sheaf played well. It's particularly in recent weeks. He always came with the caveat that he was injury prone. I think we have to be honest about that. Otherwise, would he not still be with Coventry City? He was at his absolute apex. We just got to be honest about that. Matty James is what, 33? And you are just going to pick up injuries. Injuries are a part of the game. That's why they always say the best availability or the best ability is availability. That is super important. That is why Dom Hyam, and it became a running joke on here that I would always mention that he played every minute for Blackburn. That is why that is so impressive. That is why Max playing so many minutes is really impressive. And Doyle, and Thomason, who's able to keep going week after week. Knock on
You'd
wood
also
here.
say like someone like Ryan Longman. I know he's not the most popular player, but he's always available. Like he's always there if we need him. So that's why Parky gives him the minutes.
And that means something, I think. The durability is an incredible asset, especially when you're in rigorous campaigns like the Championship. Libby Cacace, we said in Italy there was no, history of major injury problems. Fully understand that. This might just be a really, really difficult season. Next season might be, he might be a different animal. Come back even stronger. We have one of the best wing backs in the division on our hands. But there's also the possibility that the game styles in Italy and in England are drastically different. And whereas technique and football IQ and other things become more important, athleticism and other factors and physicality and durability, maybe they are more in question. I hope not. And I hope Cacace bounces back and becomes this brilliant athlete. But I was not surprised when I didn't even click on the link, to be honest, Rich. But once I saw that there was a Libby Cacace injury update, I knew it was going to be setback and he wasn't going to feature. That's just the story of his season. Really, really disappointing for everyone, I think on all fronts. I feel like I've spotted Libby Cacace outside stadiums driving in as an injured player more than I've seen him play this season, which is pretty disappointing. Dobson, in that exact moment, I don't know about you, Rich, I wanted him to take out Garnacho. I didn't want him to get sent off. I wanted him to make the foul. And you have to live with the consequence, because in that moment, I wanted to try and win the game. I wanted him to take that foul, much like I wanted Seb Revan to make that foul away at Charlton. Maybe not where he made it, but like I can't hate the after when before I was rooting for that exact thing. So the Dobson red card doesn't matter so much if Matty James or Ben Sheaf are available, right? It's just compounding a bigger issue. We're not fortune tellers, but we mentioned in January the risk that you were a little bit light in central midfield. Would that be an issue if Cacace's fit? You could have Thomason inside. There's so many elements to it. But that key for more injury that's the biggest blow of them all. That's an absolutely crushing blow, because while he might not be flavour of the month now like he was at the beginning of the season, I think people I don't know if people are underestimating, actually, but I think it will dawn on people now just how vital Kiefer is, even when he doesn't score, even when he doesn't get an assist. His overall impact on the game is huge. And the inability to mix things up now, go more physical, go for that focal point, go for that target man. We don't have anyone that can do that now. And if he's missing for the best part of a month, we don't have anyone to do that for the next 5 matches, say. And by that point, who knows where we are. So of all the injuries and suspensions, that Kiefer one is absolute dagger, like the worst possible injury at the worst possible time.
Yeah, again, it's what he does in both boxes. It's the way that he holds up the play, he annoys opponents, also how he brings the other attackers into the game. I think, one of the key reasons why Windass particularly, but also Broadhead play better when Kiefer's on the pitch is because he occupies that space between the centre-backs and gives them the space that they relish on the edge of the box to go and make something happen. And we saw on Tuesday night, okay, it's maybe not the fairest game to reflect it on, but Windass and Broadhead both struggled kind of to do what they do best because it was a different striker they were playing with. Smith wasn't going to be the guy to occupy the centre-backs and to bring them into play as much. So it just didn't quite, work the same. So that's going to be an interesting one. But again, Cadamarteri, he was in danger of being that kind of missing man. And we saw for the first few months of the season where we were probably quite disrespectful to George Thomason because we're saying, who is this guy? What's the point of him? Why do we sign him? Then he got his chance, became a Ballon d'Or nominated wing-back. Cadamarteri, this is your chance. Like, this is, again, that feels like the biggest, opportunity now for me. Cadamarteri minutes, we've got to start seeing him, haven't we? Sort of half an hour every single game, similar to what we were doing with sort of Smith and Moore, surely. You've just got to get this guy on, get him up to speed. He has played at this level. Sheffield Wednesday didn't want to lose him. And sure, the plan might not have been for him to play as much as he's gone over the next few weeks, but give him some game time. Show him what he's all about because he looked so effective when he came on. His first touch, he knocked it down for DKD, I think, who sort of dragged a volley wide of the goal, and then he chipped the ball back across for Rodriguez's header as well. He just looked like he really knew how to put himself about, and he had that physicality that maybe we don't have from the other options available right now. So that's the opportunity, mate. That is it.
For me, it's about DKD. You have to show why you signed a player that, look, if people remember, I can't remember how many shows ago now, I played a clip of a question I asked Parky about Lewis O'Brien playing deeper. And I remember it because I was reading Richard Sutcliffe's piece in The Athletic about the importance of Lewis O'Brien now in this deeper role. He's basically the last man standing in central midfield. Parky said, didn't he, Rich, that we looked around for a central midfielder, or we were thinking about looking around, and then realised we weren't going to get anyone like Lewis O'Brien or as good as Lewis O'Brien. And so that's why we went for Keeler Dunn, because we were going to get another forward player, drop Lewis O'Brien back. Windass, don't think he played particularly well on Tuesday. Broadhead played okay. I think he is more comfortable taking the ball under duress, turning. There are some nice nutmegs, some nice flicks and tricks. Like I said, I do think he keeps hold of the ball too much. Have to utilize DKD now. Half an hour, 45 a start. Do something. Give him a proper chance. He can score goals. Good finisher. Don't score that many goals in League One and become a complete bust in the Championship. The high stakes games, but with respect, you've made a move for this guy, a few million quid that only a year or two ago would have been Wrexham's record buy. So let's not completely sniff at what was paid for DKD, a guy who can play as a number 9 in a more fluid front three, can play in either of the 10s. And like I say, I think it's time to both get creative and also give these lads proper minutes. I think it was clear that Sam Smith wasn't working out the other night. And there'll be a game coming up, it might be Friday, where he starts and he lights it up. And we're looking at two strikers in Smith and Robotnik, and Smith gets the better of that matchup. But for me, it's about DKD. Cadamarteri, I really liked. I agree with all your points, Rich, salient points about his impact and the cross he put in for Rodriguez. I think Rodriguez should be doing better with that. You think it may be trickier than it appeared on first glance, but he did have an impact. I'd like to see more minutes for him. That was a key takeaway. But got to give DKD a proper chance now. He's scored a lot of goals, across different levels. Now give him a fair crack of the whip in the Championship.
Well, Nath, the perfect chance to respond then on Friday night. Wrexham versus Swansea under the lights at the Kairos. And who better to preview the match than the man who taunted Wrexham fans ahead of our first meeting earlier in the season, comedian and broadcaster Elis James. Let's see if Wrexham can earn this win and not buy it, eh? So, Elis, Wrexham versus Swansea again. I mean, we can't talk about the rematch without what happened earlier in the season. And social media was arise with a certain promotional video where Ernst not bought, I think, was the
Well-
immortal phrase, was it?
It was. Do you know what? I've been doing sports stuff like, podcasts and things, and I did Fantasy Football League for years now. And I did get some stick off Wrexham fans. I actually thought I'd get more. But I think it all got sort of outweighed by Swansea fans who liked it on my social media. But a friend of mine, because he finds this stuff very funny, he did send me a link to, I don't know what the Wrexham forum is called.
Red Passion.
Yeah, that was it. But he said there was a thread about that video on Red Passion, and I mean, I didn't come out of it super well. But what can you say? That's you live by the sword, you die by the sword.
Yeah. You got come up with any more bold claims or taglines to settle this fixture?
No,
or
I don't think so. Mainly because our away form is really bad. So I don't fancy it at all at the racecourse. So I was at Portsmouth actually last night, and we won 2-1. A rare away win for us because our home form's excellent. We haven't lost at home since November. I think it's 10 games on the trot now. Whereas our away form, we'd be sort of 22nd in the table is the statistic I've seen. And I really like Matos. I think he's a really good manager. I think he's the right man for the job. I can't work out why we are so good at home and so poor away from home. But I'm hoping that the sort of emotion of the Chelsea game, and also you played Hull as well on Tuesday night. I'm hoping that having gone to extra time, you're gonna have tired legs and all that kind of thing. But I personally at this stage would take a point. Although it's getting a little bit exciting because should we win, I went to the Portsmouth game, and in the car on the way home we were looking at the table, and should we win we'd then be 2 points adrift of you. So there's a lot riding on it, and also it's always a big deal when the Welsh clubs play each other.
Yeah, how would you describe this game? Because again, for us, we've almost had to re-educate ourselves on what a derby is and what a rivalry is, because we've been away for so long that the Swansea and Cardiff games always had a bit of edge to them in the Welsh Cup and etc.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we played properly, kind of in the league as equals, hasn't it?
Well, a Welsh derby I think makes sense. It's not a derby like Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday, really, because there's hundreds of miles between us, but. There was always a certain something to playing Wrexham, like there is for all the Welsh clubs. Obviously, Cardiff's our big one, but then I was there when we played Newport in the FA Cup, and they chucked a coin and it hit linesman, and there was a lot of fighting outside the away. Like, it was a lot of aggro at that game.
Yeah.
And even I went to Newport a couple of times in the FAW Premier Cup, and there was always something riding on it. So, I always looked forward to playing Wrexham when we used to play you regularly, because it felt like an event, I was talking to a friend of mine actually earlier on about the Wrexham game, and he was there at the racecourse when you won 1-0, and what's his name? Connolly played, Carl Connolly scored the penalty, given away by a certain Frank Lampard, who was playing for the Swans that day. But I'm looking forward to it. And also I'm friends with Humphrey, you see. Because I know him through the stand-up circuit. I've known Humphrey for about 18 years, so we'll be texting each other before and after the game, no doubt. But yeah, our away form is so bad. We beat Watford at the end of January and Portsmouth last night, but in the main, we're pretty poor away from home. So I don't see how this one's going to go.
Can you believe that Humphrey kind of runs a football club now?
It's absolutely mad to me. As someone who's known him for a long time, and I play 5-a-side with Humphrey, so we were playing 5-a-side. I don't know, about 6 months ago, and at half time it was a comedians game, right? So everyone's checking their phones and they're all replying to gig offers. Yes, I can do that in Oldham on Tuesday night or whatever. He picked up his phone and he went, "Oh yeah." I said, "What's that then?" He said, "Oh, it's just something to do with the academy." I was like, "Wow, you actually run a football
You're
club."
involved. Yeah.
And I was filming. I made a programme about the history of Welsh football. So obviously we did a lot of filming at the racecourse because of the FAW
Great soundtrack,
being
that programme had as
yeah,
well.
thank you. But the FAW obviously founded in Wrexham, the Wednesday, and he just Ryan and Rob had just taken over So he showed me his little office, and as someone who used to do gigs with him, I still can't quite get used to it. It's very interesting.
How do you think you'd cope in that role?
Oh, terribly. I haven't got the
Marvin
admin
Town
skills
sort
for
of in
it.
administration
No,
immediately?
God,
So-
it'd be awful. Yeah. The only way I could do it would be if I somehow became so insanely rich that I could then just employ everyone else to do all the hard stuff, and I could just turn up in the director's box and I don't know, sort of sit next to Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg and Luka Modric, or if it was at Carmarthen Town, Rod Gilbert and all the other famous people. Well, they're all rugby players, famous people from Carmarthen, but yeah.
We were talking about that when we had Max Rushton on the show. We got him on for a Cambridge preview. I'm not really sure why. We had to wake up at 5 a.m. to call him in Australia.
Yeah, when he lives in Australia. Yeah.
That was the slight logistic problem of having him on the show that we hadn't accounted for. And we spent the first 5 minutes talking about kind of pre-fame Wrexham. And for us, it was that Tim Vincent was a Wrexham fan. I suppose for you growing up, because it feels like it's similar to sort of Swans and Wrexham. Like, you'll know growing up, you kind of just digest all the content because they're so rarely talked about that you know everything. You've watched the same YouTube videos 100 times. You've read every article. You know all the celebrity fans, and
Tim Vincent, yeah.
Every time they're mentioned, you digest it and you love it. What was Swansea like growing up for you? What were, as a club, like what was their sort of structure in the I could say the EFL. It wasn't kind of called the EFL back then, but
I was always, I probably shouldn't admit this, I was always a little bit jealous of Wrexham, actually, because you beat Arsenal and then you beat Ipswich. I remember that. And then there was the cup run when you got to the quarter-final, losing to Chesterfield, which was there for the taking, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, just still haunts us. And
Yeah.
Sean Dyche scoring a penalty against Borough in the semi. They got robbed in the semi against Borough, didn't they?
Yes, they did. They lost 4-3, I think, in the semi. And then, obviously, and I loved Brian Flynn. Now, Brian Flynn rescued us. There should be a statue of Brian Flynn outside the racecourse. There should be a statue of Brian Flynn outside the Swansea.com stadium, because if it wasn't for him, I don't know where we'd be. And I must admit, right, if Wrexham get to the Premier League, and especially if they win something, it would be an incredible story, an insane story. I do think, though, other than possibly Luton, I can't think of a club. Oxford, maybe. I can't think of a club that's had a madder 50 years than us. Because we had to apply for re-election to the Football League. And then a couple of years later, we appoint John Toshak. So we go 4-3-2-1 into the First Division. We're top of the table from the first day until the end of March. It looks like we're going to win the league. And then we had injuries over Easter, and then we came sixth, which is the lowest we've been all season. Then we got relegated next season. So we went 4-3-2-1, 1-2-3-4. In 85, we had to apply. We got wound up in the High Court, so we're back where we started. The late 80s, 90s was just madness and roller coasters and promotions and relegations and being run terribly. And then by the early 2000s, once we'd got rid of Tony Petty, we were run by a trust, like Wrexham, obviously. And then the owners, Hugh Jenkins and Martin Morgan and the rest, they just made brilliant decisions for about 10 years. So the Hull game in 2003, when we almost got relegated from the Football League, we're 45 minutes away from being relegated from the Football League. And then 8 years later in the Premier League, and 2 years after that, we won the League Cup, and then we're playing in Europe and we're beating Valencia. And we had 7 years in the Prem. Like, it's just such a roller coaster. It's like this Snoop Dogg thing and Luka Modric. You just kind of got to sit back and enjoy it, because it's you never know what's coming next. Like, if you're Rochdale, they've been in the same division for about 50 years.
Yeah. I think they generally had the record, didn't they? The longest run a team had whad without any kind of jeopardy. They'd
promotion or relegation, and they'd never had a cup run in that time as well. So you just think, well, what's the point?
What is the
So and also the thing I always associate with Wrexham as well is you sold us Lee Trundle, who is certainly in the last 30 years or so the most important signing in the history of the club. And so it's a big game. I used to do a podcast for the BBC called Feast of Football. So when we started that, Wrexham were in the National League.
So, yeah.
And what would happen is you would get it would look like it was going to happen for Wrexham, and you'd often lose your manager. Was it Sam Ricketts went to
Sam Ricketts
Shrewsbury?
went to Shrewsbury. Saunders
Yeah.
went as well.
That's it.
When we were doing okay under him, yes.
And then as well, there was often
Keats went to Walsall as well.
Dean
yeah.
Keats was the other one. Then there was often a club that just had money, like Stockport had money.
You could say that they bought it rather than earned it, couldn't you?
Yeah. So this now is amazing. It's just as someone who's a little bit older, a friend of mine he lives in West London, and he's a Swansea boy, and he's a big fan of the Swans, and he was at like a school play or something, and there was a guy in front of him wearing a Wrexham cap, right? And he thought, oh, great, another Welsh dad on the school run. I'll go and introduce myself. And this guy was from like Cincinnati or something, but he's seen Welcome to Wrexham. And it's a bit like the Swans, because when we were in the Premier League, when Michael Laudrup was managing us, you'd be at, in the away end at Goodison Park, and there'd be 50 men from Denmark who were fans of Michael Laudrup. And I remember thinking, wow, we're becoming this big global brand. And then as soon as he left, they never came back again. So it must be quite strange for Wrexham, because we've kind of been there, and that we had a big journey as well, and fingers crossed we can get back there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you in terms of like the fan base now, because you've had that recent success of going so high and winning a trophy as well. What is the expectation going into kind of every season? Because part of me just loves being in the Championship and never wants to get promoted.
I love the Championship.
I love the
Great
Championship.
division.
Like,
yeah.
I don't want the Premier League. We saw VAR in the Chelsea game. I don't want any of that, but we're so close that I want to experience it. But maybe long term, I just want to be a Championship club. But from the Swans' perspective, is it a generational thing where maybe the older fans are just happy to still be a competent Championship team, but the youngsters surely they grew up on Premier League football?
The ones I know who are about 10 years older than me remember us being really competitive in the First Division in 81-82 under Toshak. And they've often got quite high expectations. The ones who are about 10 years younger than me are used to the Premier League. I want to get back there. People my age, I'm in my 40s. For us, the Championship was the promised land. And I always used to think, when you look at the size of the city and the catchment area, because obviously we've got supporters in West Wales, I used to think, the Championship probably would suit us. Because if you looked at our history, say, 40 years either side of the war, we were quite a stable second division team. And the chaos of the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, when we were bouncing around the lower divisions alongside Cardiff and Wrexham, I always thought we were a little bit too big, really, for League Two and League One. Just not, in terms of potential, because, where's a second city? There's a lot of people living there. So I like the Championship because the games feel like events. There's often decent away followings, which is nice because, if you're in League Two, the opposition might be bringing 50 or 60 sometimes if it's like a Tuesday night, especially to us because we're so far away.
I think there's this famous story when we were in the National League. I think Histon brought one fan. he got invited into the director's box.
That person deserves a medal, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is, again, like we mentioned, those Rochdale fans. It's incredible. They
Yeah.
brought one supporter on I think he came on the club coach of them, and they just
That's
said,
incredible.
Yeah.
Because even Rill and Cymru Prem teams take more than one.
Yeah.
I mean, one is one. He's not even
Doesn't
got a
know
friend.
anyone who'll go with him. Yeah.
So so I think the Championship suits us. I mean, being very sensible about it. The problem with the Championship is that it's financially such a difficult league to sustain yourself in, because you're competing with teams who often have parachute payments, and for us we're competing with teams that have got a big turnover and commercial revenue and all that kind of stuff. And certainly we got stung by this when we came down from the Premier League. We were still paying big Premier League contracts, but your shirt sponsorship deal will be 10% of what it was in the Premier League. So I think if you're in charge of the club, you want to get to the Premier League and make a lot of money. As a supporter, the Championship is an amazing division because you go on a run, you can end up near the playoffs. But also, if you go on a bad run, you're threatened with relegation. There's always something to play for. And, there's some big teams in the Championship. I really like the Championship. But this Snoop Dogg thing, and also we've got different American owners now. And I was talking to a friend of mine about the Wrexham game yesterday, and if you look at, say, Ryan and Rob and compare them to the last set of American owners we had who were, hated really by our supporters, Ryan and Rob and Humphrey's communication is so good. Like, exactly what they're doing, exactly what they're planning to do. Whereas the last lot we had before the current lot, they never went to games, and there's no real idea of what the strategy was, and it just seemed to be sticking plasters all the time. Whereas this current set of owners, and as daft as it is that Luka Modric, one of the world's greatest midfielders, is involved, and Snoop Dogg is involved. Snoop Dogg did a gig in Llansamlet. I mean, not even I do gigs in Llansamlet. It's crazy, but you're hoping that they're putting us on the map a little bit and that we're going to end up being competitive, because I think this season, I don't think we'll do it this season, but if we stick with Matos and he gets a good summer transfer window, then I think we could be competitive next year.
I was going to ask you on this current Swansea team. Like I said, you were at Pompey on Tuesday night. That is a really impressive win. Who are the sort of stars? Because Verbotnik looks quality. He looks
he's leading scorer in the division. Yeah. Ethan Galbraith is a great player. I think he's such a good player, Ethan Galbraith. So he would probably be the one to watch for me, because we got him from Leyton Orient, and a friend of mine's a Leyton Orient fan, and he said you've got a really good player there. But Verbotnik I like. Our goalkeeper's fantastic. I think he might be the best goalkeeper in the Championship, because I was at Millwall in January and we lost 2-1, but he completely kept us in the game, and he made a great save last night, actually, when he was still 0-0. So I don't know. I mean, so presumably for Wrexham, your ambition is the Premier League and win a cup, I suppose.
Well, honestly, we had Rob and Ryan on the podcast last summer, and Rob said if we get to the Premier League and we finish 7th, I'll be asking why did 6 teams finish ahead of us? And part of you laughs that off, because we laughed it off initially when they said we want to get to the Premier League, but they are deadly serious. I think that the ambition of the club is to go as high as you can. But from a Wrexham point of view, I want to do a Swansea. I want to go watch us win an FA Cup or a League Cup, get into Europe and watch us play. Like you said, you had Valencia away that you won at the Mestalla.
Well, the Welsh clubs have all got history in Europe. That's the daft thing. I mean, Merthyr played in Europe. They beat Atalanta and Bangor City beat Napoli and all this kind of stuff. It was absolutely fantastic playing in Europe. And I couldn't go to Naples because we played Napoli. And I couldn't go because I was filming. I couldn't get out of it. So I would have loved to have gone to Naples, but I was in Valencia. And the thing with winning a League Cup is that realistically, you're not going to win the Prem. That's just not going to happen. But the League Cup, people call it Mickey Mouse Trophy and all that kind of stuff. We beat Chelsea in the semi-final. I think they'd won the Champions League the year before. And we beat them 2-0 away at Stamford Bridge.
Was that Danny Graham? I seem to remember.
Yeah. What a night that was. What a night. Because there's the Comedians' Christmas party is in January, because we're all doing gigs at Christmas. And it was the night of the Comedians' Christmas party. So I went to the game at Stamford Bridge, and then I went to the party afterwards. And I just sort of floated in, because I thought it's ours for the taking now. I mean, we've beaten them 2-0. We're going to end up in the final. And it's probably playing Bradford, who were in
Phil Parkinson's Bradford,
in League Two. And all the football fans could tell that they'd all seen the score, and they could tell from the way I was sort of floating on air that I'd been to the match. But that was the best thing. And it was miserable the last 3 years because the writing was on the wall that we were going to go down. But what I would say is, I mean, nothing will ever compare to getting relegated from the Football League for Wrexham. I mean, if you were there for that, it's all good, isn't it? I suppose. But when we did get relegated from the Prem, I remember thinking, well, in my time, the ground has changed. The owners obviously have changed. Manners have changed dozens of times. Obviously, players have been and gone. The only thing that's stayed the same is the people I go with and the fact that the club is still in Swansea. So with that, it made me a little bit more sort of sanguine about it all, I think. I mean, the awful thing with relegation is that, you know, people at the club lose their jobs, which I don't think enough people realise, actually. But in the main, the Championship is a fun division to be in. So I think I've chilled out a little bit. It's a bit like after Wales qualified for Euro 2016. Yeah. I was more relaxed after we failed to qualify for 2018 because I thought, I've done it. I've been to a tournament. So we've lived it. But how do you think we're going to play? How do you think it's going to pan out against the Swans on Friday night then?
Again, we were so hungover against Hull on Tuesday night, we just looked dead on our feet. And I think it was the emotional and physical kind of aspects of Saturday and the whole world being on that game. It just took its toll on us. I think Friday night, I mean, what worries me, again, being a pessimistic Wrexham fan, is just every time we play a team who I think we might beat at home, especially in these kind of derby feeling matches. We were abysmal against Cardiff earlier in the season. We were dreadful away at Swansea as well. Yeah. But
I was surprised at that, actually. I was. It took me by surprise how Wrexham played that night in Swansea. I was expecting more. I didn't fancy us going to that. Mainly because I'd done the video. I thought if we lose, social media's going to be unreadable for about 5 days.
But again, like you said, it's one of those things where we're in. Why every time I write Parky off, and I've done it like so many times, I was like, we're not going to get out of the National League because it's Wrexham. We're going to lose to Notts County on Easter Monday, and that will be it. And then League One as well. You know, last season, Charlton, the final day, you thought it could still go horribly wrong because I'm so scarred from my childhood.
Of
watching us mess it up in inconceivable ways, really, all the time. But similar to you with your Wales experiences, I think I'm a pessimist in the best possible way, but I just don't want to get too carried away and cocky. So I think a draw on Friday night as well, Al.
It's funny, like I talk to my kids, they think we're going to win all the time. Just because they haven't got that baggage. I'm quite jealous of.
It must be great.
It must be great to like that. They like that with Wales as well. I took them to the women. Took them to the women's Euros in the summer.
It's like not only the men's team qualifying for tournaments, the women are as well.
Oh, it's fantastic. But you know, we were there. We went to 2 of the 3. So we went to the Netherlands 3-0 and then the England 6-1. And I think they had a little bit of the optimism taken out of them after the England 6-1. But then we scored, and that's the thing they remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's I would like to think on the Swansea side that the Portsmouth game has somehow proven to the players that we can win away from home, because we looked good in the quarter of an hour leading up to half time when we were 2-0 up, and then we missed 2 absolute sitters in the first 10 minutes of the second half, and then we really let them get back into it. And I don't know what it is about us away from home. I can't put my finger on it, because it's the same players playing in the same formation in the same setup. So you would think that the results would be fairly similar, but there is a big gap between them. So I don't know. Annoyingly, I can't go because I do the radio on a Friday and I can't get out of it. So if it was a Saturday 3 p.m, I'd have been there, but I can't get out of the radio show on Friday, so I'll be watching.
Well, Rob and Ryan are doing the commentary on Sky Sports. I think it's on the red button, to be fair. I don't think that's being forced on the masses, because I'm not sure that's that was sort of compliancy. But
I was wondering about this, because when I did Feast of Football years ago, Iwan Roberts was playing in a Norwich Legends game against Inter Milan, because it was like 25 years since they played Inter Milan in the UEFA Cup. So for a bit of fun, me and Danny Gabardon commentated on the game. I'd never commentated before.
It's good stuff.
But what was horrible was I didn't know many of the sort of Inter Milan players or the Norwich players, because they'd all put on weight and looked so different. I didn't recognise any of them. And commentating when you don't know the players is awful. So I don't know how Ryan and Rob will do it, because presumably they won't know the Swansea players as well as obviously they'll know the Wrexham lot, but it's going to be quite a one-sided commentary affair, I would imagine.
Yeah, you could just already know they're going to be some very sort of out of context social media clips, and there's just going to be such a pile on of Wrexham that I remember when we played Bromley in the FA Trophy final, and we scored a 92nd minute equaliser that was ruled out for offside, and then BT Sport just uploaded a video of Rob and Ryan celebrating the goal. And it was just
which everyone else would have done.
There's 20,000 of us celebrating it, but it was like, let's pile on to the two North Americans. So,
but I think as well, because we were managed by Bob Bradley, who was from the US, and I think, if you're American, sort of from the US or Canada, I think the British media can be quite unfair on those people. I mean, Bob Bradley, let's face it, he was well out of his depth and he made some crazy decisions, but he got an awful lot of stick for being American, I think.
Yeah.
So I can understand that. But we shall see. You've made me a bit nervous now. I haven't done another video, by the way. I think there's. I'll leave that to the Wrexham social media team this time.
Yeah, we'll get Humphrey to do one in exchange instead. So, before you go, you've mentioned it, that the half marathon. Can listeners sponsor you for this? Is there a link?
Do you know what? I haven't set it up yet. It will be to raise money for Parkinson's UK, and I will put the details on my Instagram. However, I've never run a half marathon before. If you were expecting a quick time, sponsor someone else. Because I've just realised that a half marathon is too far. If you do marathons, you are crazy in my book. It is, yeah. But yeah, it's at the end of, May the 17th it is. So yeah, fingers crossed it goes all right.
Well, hopefully there'll be hundreds of Wrexham fans at the finish line saying,
flicking the V's.
Well, Nate, someone who won't be in the tech end with me on Friday night is Ryan Reynolds. He made a guest appearance behind the goal for the second half against Hull on Tuesday night. It was quite weird because he just emerged and people were like, that guy looks like Ryan Reynolds. And then he asked two Wrexham supporters if he could swap their seats. They went and sat in the owner's box instead. He took their place in the tech end. Not gonna lie, it felt a little bit of a distraction for the first 5 or 10 minutes because most of the tech end were just staring at Ryan Reynolds and be like, is that actually him? Like, what's happening here? But by the end of it, he was cheering, getting behind the team, got to see a goal right in front of him. Okay, he didn't get the grand finale, but Rob's experienced Blackpool away, Ryan's experienced the tech end, it's going to be interesting to see. I know I'm going to have to kind of watch it back, how their commentary debut goes on Friday night.
Yes, well, I was going to say, it must have been odd for you to sort of not be the most recognisable media personality in the tech end. That must have been a kind of really difficult pill to swallow, Rich, alongside your mum. It will be really interesting. I still don't know about this commentary thing because there were some rumours that Snoop Dogg is actually also attending the game, and Reynolds and McElhenney will be there. Obviously, Ryan has stuck around. Rob went back. I would assume he's coming back to do it in person, but again, whether he's dialing in remote, there's also been some massive misconception that it's going to be the only available main commentary. That just will not be the case. That there will be regular match commentary. I think this will be some sort of quirky red button option or cutaway. They go to them for some witty colour analysis or whatever it is, and they'll have a variety of special guests that come in and it'll have their usual razzmatazz and it'll annoy all the right people and it'll entertain all the other people that are actually on board with it.
You just know there's going to be a viral moment from the game that Sky Sports tweet out, and a lot of sort of thick football fans will be saying it's an absolute disgrace that Sky Sports have pandered to Disney FC and made Rob and Ryan the lead commentators for a game like this. So biased. What is going on? Corrupt. The EFL want them to get promoted. It's an absolute disgrace. Not realising you probably just got to press a red button to get Rob and Ryan. And if you want to just watch the regular commentary, that's what you get given. But yes, you just know that's going to be the case.
Rich, I also didn't send you this privately, but I was reading a piece by a mutual friend of ours, Mr. Pete Hall.
I read
who was at
this.
the game, and he wrote a piece after the Chelsea game which said that Wrexham are in their villain era, which was perhaps the most 21st century sentence Pete Hall's ever said in his
Did it
life.
ever end? Have we
Um,
only just entered the villain era?
and also, I
Because
would say that initially when I saw the headline, I was like, "Ooh, I feel like I might feel a type of way about this piece." I read it, and while I didn't agree with all of it, I felt like it was. I thought there was some interesting points in there made. I feel like I disagreed with Pete's overall conclusion, but I did find the piece quite interesting because I think it's also good to just see the other side of the coin. Where I feel maybe uber positive about something, I can understand that a non-Wrexham fan, wouldn't feel that way. So I actually felt like Pete's piece was quite interesting, actually. Talking about
I'm not
villain
sure
era
if
and
you
whatnot.
got the same. One of the lecturers when we went to uni might have said it to you as well, to your year. Like they said to me, like, they did like this straw poll in the classroom. They said, "What like media do you digest? What websites do you go to? What kind of not like kind of political? Like what angles are you reading? It's kind of left wing stuff, is right wing stuff, centrist. What type of content you digesting?" And they said, because what I think you should all do is read content that you oppose to, so it challenges your beliefs. Otherwise, you're just reinforcing your own beliefs, aren't you? And you get stuck in this little bubble where you think everything else, the outside world, just is completely wrong. So I think that's the same with football. I like reading people who hate Wrexham because it does make me think about things a certain way where, I said it when I was on TalkSport for the Chelsea game. Look, if Torquay or Cambridge had been bought by Robin Ryan, I'd probably hate both of their clubs as well because I'd be jealous of envy. So that's absolutely fine. Swansea, Friday night at the Nath, what are you changing? Do you think you have to change? Do you think you have to react too much? Or do you think maybe the beauty of Parky's football is that he'll just name an unchanged team, they'll go out there and put things right?
As I said, if you offered me the chance to change one thing, I would change the goals. I would get fresh goals if you could give me one thing, but that's probably not going to happen. So I would say Viner will not start the game. I would be surprised. I would be shocked if he started again in central midfield because I think you will just need to take the game to Swansea. Tuesday night for me was a kind of let's not lose game. A draw would have been fine. I felt like. I feel like Friday's a must-win game. I really do. I feel like this has to be the game where we snap ourselves out of the kind of current malaise, if you will. I really feel strongly that we have to win the game on Friday against Swansea, just to send a reminder that Wrexham can still sort of throw punches in this promotion hunt. You don't necessarily want to be going down to Watford on a Tuesday night really on the ropes. I know Watford struggled at Sheffield Wednesday on Tuesday night themselves. Their playoff bid is teetering under, is it Ed Still? Will Still's brother, I think it is. They are in a difficult moment as well, but much like Swansea, they're only ever a win or two away, and Wrexham are the kind of wounded animal there to be shot at right now. So I feel really strongly that we need to be a kind of front foot team. I think it'll be the same back three, and I think it'll be Thomason, and I think it'll be Kabore. I've seen suggestions about put Longman at left wing back, move Thomason inside. I think it'll probably be a situation where it's going to be O'Brien and Rathbone as a kind of makeshift deeper line midfield pair. Don't think that's massively Rathbone's strength, but at this point, it is what it is. He can get on the board, try to be dynamic, and he's I think he's tactically disciplined enough. I would start DKD, and I would start Broadhead, and I would start Smith. I would turn to Cadamartri a lot sooner, and also turn to Windass off the bench. That gives you two decent bench options. I think we need to try and use people like Lewis Brunt a little bit more as a set-piece threat. Likes of Dan Sky, if we need to mix up, have to use everyone now because we've got the 5 subs. They're not as effective as maybe they would have been a month ago, 2 months ago, but we have to trust the players we've got, and I think that means off the back of that performance on Tuesday, making a couple of alterations.
Of course, we're recording this Wednesday early evening, late afternoons. We don't know what's happened on Wednesday night. Of course, there's some big games in the Championship. I think there's about 6 fixtures in total. But again, even if you look forward to this weekend, Nath, we've got Swansea Friday. The early kickoff on Saturday is Coventry versus Southampton. So, there could be points dropped behind us there. Also some big ties with, I think, Hull have got to go to West Brom. That could be tricky. And then Derby not in action until the Monday night when they're away at Pompey, which we've seen ourselves play this season. That, again, the concern we always have as football fans, you just presume every team's going to win their game in hand. But there's got to be points dropped. We've dropped some points. That's fine. Every other team is going to drop points. It's about how we respond now. Wrexham versus Swansea Friday night. Nathan, you feeling positive? Are we going to get that win?
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm newly turned 30, so I'm trying to be in my sort of like 30 and try and be positive.
30 and thriving.
30 and thriving. Don't become pessimistic. Also, I did want to give a shout out to my friends Misha and Jasmine. Got me a very nice. I don't know if you want to give this to anyone of a Wrexham persuasion, but a premium pen and notebook gift set, which comes in a very nice box. If anyone who's watching can see, if you're not watching, which I didn't know Wrexham sold these, but they do. And very nice, Rich. I thought so. I just wanted to shout out to them. And I got this Wrexham cap. So thank you for all the birthday wishes as well. Rich even put one out for me off podcast account, which was very nice. But yeah, you know what it is? You said it yourself. Recriminations and inquest for me, it might even be a bit strong for some people. Got to come after the fact, right? Like, I don't want to start picking the bones out of a result against Swansea before it's even happened. Swansea, decent side, went to Portsmouth, won the other night. They are on the charge under Matos. Like, they are a very good team. Shouldn't have beaten us in the away game. That was a draw all day long, really, as a game. Poor game. We need the racecourse rocking. We need to drag players over the line because they've served up a lot of great performances for us. You think of Coventry at home, easy to root for. Then I know we just lost to Cardiff in the cup, but Chelsea gave absolutely everything, blood and thunder. And we got a game, a performance, a talking point for a lifetime, in terms of FA Cup memories. Now it's over to us, I think. Now it's over to us to inspire some belief, make Cadamarteri feel like he's king of the world, make DKD feel a part of it, because a lot of these new lads haven't had their signature Wrexham moment yet, and that's coming. It's got to be. That Cadamarteri first goal, if it's a winner against someone in these final 10 games, a DKD assist or a winning goal, or there's massive moments left in the season, and it's about not writing our own obit before the season's even ended.
Yeah. Well, whatever happens, we'll be back over the weekend to reflect on Swansea, to look ahead to Watford next week as well. Thank you to all of you for tuning in as always. Massive shout out to Red 10 People Development for continued support of the podcast, and to Wrexham-based band Hypnotic for the music, the stings we hear in the show. Take care, and we will see you again next time.
The Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Faye.